A veteran of state politics steps back into the spotlight, joining Governor J.B. Pritzker at the top of the ticket. Tonight, Christian Mitchell gets to the point.
From Chicago's very own, with WGN political editor Tamon Bradley, this is The Point.
Good evening. Last summer, Governor J.B. Pritzker said his next running mate would need to be someone who can do his job. Now campaigning for a third term, the governor's future plans still loom large. And here to talk about what comes next, candidate for Lieutenant Governor Christian Mitchell. Thanks for coming in.
Happy to be here, and congrats on the new show.
Really appreciate it. The obvious question for you is, are you prepared to be governor?
Listen, the governor has always said that the most important job of lieutenant governor is to be ready to be governor. Having said that, he is running to be governor of the state of Illinois. I'm running to be lieutenant governor for the first time, and I'm excited to support him in keeping Illinois moving forward. He's already done really great things, raised the minimum wage, made sure that we've capped the cost of insulin, made life more affordable for working families. I'm excited to be part of the team.
Now, you're smart about politics. You know I asked this because if we're being honest here, a lot of people think your boss in a couple years will be camped out in early voting states, South Carolina, New Hampshire, Michigan, leaving you to run the state. Have you guys talked about that?
The governor has been incredibly clear about this, Tamon. He is running for re-election as governor of the state of Illinois. Listen, I think Governor Pritzker would be a fantastic president, which is why I'm so happy that he's running for re-election as governor of this state. And I just want to say, if we take a step back and we look across the history of Illinois, we've had governors become infamous across the country for a whole bunch of other not good things. This governor, I think you have people saying, look at what's happened in Illinois, look at how they balance their budgets, look at the infrastructure work that they've done. We think this kind of leadership is something that the nation ought to look at. I would much rather have a governor be considered for president and not prison.
That's an interesting line there. Now, if this all works out for you, long term, you might be Illinois' first black governor. Have you thought about that?
What I've thought about is that I'm going to be Illinois' second black lieutenant governor, and that's what I'm really focused on, and that's why I'm spending my time campaigning all around the state. I've been to 18 counties so far. I want to get to a whole bunch more of them before the campaign is over, and I'm focused on listening to people. I was in Christian County last night. I was in Crawford County the weekend before that, where apparently a statewide new candidate hadn't been since 2002. I'm trying to listen to people and make sure I can be the best lieutenant governor that I possibly can be, support the governor, make sure that we're addressing the things we need to do to cut costs for working families, lower health care costs, and make sure that life in Illinois is affordable. That's really what I'm focused on right now.
How did you get this gig? When did you find out that Juliana Stratton was moving on to do other things?
Yeah, so I'd heard that Juliana had announced to be running for U.S. Senate, and very proud of her doing that. She's been the best lieutenant governor we've had, and she'll be a great United States Senator. The governor and I obviously stayed close. I mean, I was a state rep when we met, and then I was deputy governor for him for 4.5 years, worked on the infrastructure bill, which I helped pass, as well as running a suite of state agencies. We always stayed close and in touch, and so he took me out to breakfast and said, hey, I really want you to do this, and I was enjoying my time in the private sector back at the University of Chicago, and had just signed up for the National Guard a couple years ago, and so was enjoying a different life. But I love this state. I love the people of this state. I love the work, and I'm really excited to be working with the best governor in America to keep putting Illinois back on the side of working families.
This is Governor Pritzker's third run for governor. You're joining him this time. How's the platform different than the governor's first two runs?
I think right now what we need people to recognize, and what the governors are running on, is that we need steady leadership now more than we ever have. We have come a mighty long way. When I was a state representative, we had a 736-day budget impasse under the previous Republican governor. We had $16 billion in unpaid bills. This governor has passed 7 consecutive balanced budgets. We've upgraded our infrastructure. We've raised the minimum wage and provided paid sick leave to families. Illinois looks markedly different. And at a time when we have so much uncertainty at the federal government level, we need that steady leadership to keep fighting for the people of Illinois, to help us counter the effects of the illegal tariffs we've seen coming out of Washington. We are focused on continuing to move Illinois forward, and I think that's the most important thing.
Governor Pritzker's current budget proposal is about $45 million short of what ISB says the state should be putting into evidence-based funding for K through 12 education. Would you support then this push that some Democrats are making in Springfield to have a millionaire's tax in order to get more money into public education?
Look, at the end of the day, what we have to deal with is the reality of what we're facing right now. We have seen the tariffs the president's imposed hurt our economy. We've seen the president attempt to cut off funding for a whole bunch of Illinois programs. I think the governor said about $8 billion or so is at stake over the next few years. So priority one is balancing our budget. But this is a governor who has put billions of new dollars in education, cares about that issue very, very deeply, who spent a whole bunch of his own money trying to move us to away from a flat tax system toward a system where wealthy folks pay their fair share. That was not what the voters decided. We care deeply about education. We're going to find the way to fund it at the level that needs to be funded over time.
And it's not funded at the level that is the recommendation. Stacey Davis Gates has gone statewide. Are you all prepared for her to put a little pressure into getting more money into the system?
Look, at the end of the day, CTU, IFT, important stakeholders in the state of Illinois. We want to listen to and work with anybody who has an idea about how we make lives better for the people of Illinois and especially our schools. But we do also have to make sure that we stay on the path that we are on, which is balanced budgets, investments in the future, continuing to put billions in evidence-based funding, but do so in a way that's sustainable over time, and that's what the governor's always been committed to.
You mentioned the balanced budgets. The state is in court right now battling the Trump administration is trying to withhold billions of dollars. At some point, does Illinois need to make budget cuts?
Listen, I think you've seen that spending has grown by a very, very small percentage relative to last year in this budget. I think when you adjust for some of our mandated categoricals, it's less than half a percentage point. And what's important about that is that we have emphasized fiscal discipline in this administration. The governor always, when I was deputy governor, was telling us you got to find ways to do things more efficiently. So you've certainly seen reductions over time. Having said that, we also have to make sure we are funding the things we have to fund for the people of Illinois. We have to invest in our schools, more than $300 million new dollars this year. We have to make sure we're investing in infrastructure and human services and healthcare for people. So we've got to do those things in a fiscally responsible way. That's what this governor has always done.
You're a member of the Illinois National Guard. Last fall, President Trump was threatening to send in the Guard to help with crime in Chicago. How worried were you that you would be under the control of President Trump as commander-in-chief in helping with crime on the streets of Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I am incredibly honored to be a member of the National Guard. My grandfather was one of my heroes. He was a Union steelworker, but he was also a veteran of the United States Army and an elder at our church. And in part, I joined the National Guard to follow in his footsteps. I'm most focused, I got to tell you, Taman, on what I signed up for and what I believe the soldiers in the Illinois National Guard have signed up for. And that is to protect this state from floods, fires, natural disasters. I got to work with the National Guard when I was deputy governor after the murder of George Floyd to deal with civil unrest. Folks have signed up to make sure that citizens are safe and that we protect ourselves from enemies, foreign and domestic. And I'm encouraged by the fact that even in this time of political turmoil, people show up, they do the job, they get some of the most complicated aircraft in the world up into the air and back down safe. That's what the job is. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to deal with hypotheticals about what the president will or won't do. I'm going to show up and I'm going to do my job.
I mean, it really was just the courts that stopped this. If President Trump had sent you in, you would have had to follow his orders.
Listen, I'm an officer, I'm a JAG officer in the National Guard. I serve at the pleasure of the president. Having said that, not going to deal in hypotheticals. I'm focused on the job that I signed up to do.
Got about less than a minute left. A lot of Republicans running for governor. It looks like Darren Bailey is the front runner. Are you and Governor Pritzker preparing for him?
Listen, we're preparing for whoever comes out of the Republican Party, and we want to make sure that we keep Illinois on the path that it has been on, making sure that we're investing in working people, raising the standard of living, lowering the cost of living. And you got a whole bunch of folks on that side who I think are not as committed to those goals and are trying to take Illinois in a much more extreme direction. So whoever comes out of that primary process is going to have to deal with the fact that President Trump is still at the top of the ticket. He is deeply unpopular in Illinois because his tariffs have hurt farmers, because he's taking billions of dollars that we've earned away from the people of Illinois, and they're going to have to stand for that, and we're going to run a campaign that holds them accountable.
Just give me a name. Who's going to win the U.S. Senate Democratic primary?
I'm supporting Juliana Stratton. I believe that she's going to be our next U.S.
Has she
Senator.
caught up, do you think?
I mean, I saw the same polls that you saw.
Yeah, there's a private poll that says she has the lead. I mean, it's her supporters with that poll.
I mean, they think they're calling it Stratmenum on Twitter, so it sounds like she's closing the gap.
All right, Deputy Governor Christian Mitchell running for Lieutenant Governor. Good luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming in. We're back in 60 seconds. Preparations are underway for a celebration of life for civil rights leader, the Reverend Jesse Jackson. Friday's service, which is open to the public, is expected to draw thousands of mourners from politics to pop culture.
This is a celebration. Reverend Jesse Jackson meant a lot to a lot of us, especially Chicagoans. We're also running through the program with our staff, the registration, to make sure everything is seamless for the public as they come in, as well as making sure that we understand that the ushers that are in know where everyone is sitting, putting name cards on the seats here from start to finish. It is as seamless as possible, and make sure that the family has a space that they feel the love from the people in Chicago.
Security will be tight. Former Presidents Obama, Biden, and Clinton are all confirmed to attend. Former First Lady Jill Biden and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will also be there. Local big names include Mayor Brandon Johnson, Governor J.B. Pritzker, and Cubs owner Tom Ricketts. Music guests include B.B. Winans and Marvin Sapp, plus a performance by Jennifer Hudson and a special tribute by Stevie Wonder. A private homegoing service is scheduled for Saturday morning at Rainbow Push. And if you're interested in attending the People's Celebration for Reverend Jackson, you do not need to register. The service is on Friday at House of Hope. Doors open at 9 a.m., services begin at 11, and we'll bring you live coverage here on WGN. Tonight we tip our hat to all Chicagoans past and present as the city turned 189 today. That's right, Chicago was incorporated March 4th, 1837. You've probably heard of Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable, the trader of African descent who established a permanent trading post at the mouth of the Chicago River. Anyway, a big happy birthday, Chicago. And that is The Point. I'm Tamon Bradley. Michael Materis back with more news at 9 o'clock. First up, the forecasters on WGN+. Good night.